Okay, well, let's look at growth factors. Growth factors are proteins which act as cell signaling molecules, like the cytokines and hormones. Okay, so these are called growth factors. They act as cell signaling molecules. A cell signaling molecule is a molecule that is able to communicate with a particular cell. Okay, these are chemical messenger. When it binds to a particular cell, it causes changes in a particular cell. Okay, so those are called cell signaling molecules. So these factors bind with specific surface receptors of the target cell and stimulate proliferation, differentiation, and maturation of these cells. Often the growth factors are interchangeably used with the term cytokine, but growth factors are distinct from cytokines. Okay, we need to know that. Growth factors act on the cells of the growing tissues, but cytokines are concerned with the cells of immune system and hematopoietic cells. Many growth factors are identified. Okay, so we have, we can start with PDGF, that is platelet-derived growth factor. Where does it come from? From the platelets themselves and the endothelial cells. Endothelial cells, these are cells that lines the blood vessels. Okay, its major function is to repair of damaged blood vessels and proliferation of smooth muscle fibers and connective tissue. And then we have CSF. These are called colony-stimulating factors. Where do they come from? They come from the monocytes, the T lymphocyte, and the endothelial cells. Their function is to form the formation of colony-forming blastocysts. Okay, we'll not describe in detail this. As we go on with physiology, we'll be encountering these terminologies. So the nerve growth factors, they're involved in growth and development of neurons. The erythropoietin is also a growth factor. It's secreted by the kidney. It's important in formation of red blood cells. Thrombopoietin, it's also secreted by the kidney. It's important in production of platelets. We have insulin growth factor 1, also called somatomedins. It's secreted by the liver. It is important in growth of body, particular bone. And then we have IGF-2, also secreted by the liver. It's important in the growth of the fetus. We have the epidermal growth factor. Okay, this is important in inhibition of growth of hair follicles. It's also important in the proliferation of epithelial cells, mesenchymal cells, and glial cells. We have transforming growth factors. Okay, we have myostatin. We have also basic fibroblast growth factors and transforming growth factors. So remember, growth factors, these are proteins which act as cell signaling molecules. Okay. Now let's look at cell death. Cell death is a physiological normal process. We have three distinct processes. We have autophagy, we have apoptosis, and necrosis. Okay. Death of cells is an important phenomena because it helps in homeostasis or regulation of the number of cells. Now, what is autophagy? Autophagy is a normal physiological process in the body by which cells are destroyed. Autophagy involves formation of autophagosomes, okay, which contains worn-out cytoplasmic organelles. Now, the autophagosomes will fuse with the lysosomes. Okay, then the enzymes of the lysosome cause destruction of organelles by protein degradation. The constituents of the organelles are reused for the formation of new cells. and it is thus a very important process in regulating the number of cells. Okay, so this is non-apoptotic programmed cell death. Okay, so that is autophagy, activation and elongation. The phagophore, they form what we call autophagosomes. And then the autophagosomes unite with the lysosome. So this is a normal process. I'm going to talk about this later on in detail. And then we have apoptosis. Apoptosis is defined as the natural or programmed death of the cell under the genetic control. Originally, apoptosis was a botanical name which referred to when the leaves they fall. Okay, like in Zambia, when the leaves, the trees begins to lose their leaves during August. That is called apoptosis. Apoptosis is also referred to as suicide, cell suicide. So this type of programmed cell death is a normal phenomenon, and it's essential for normal development of the body. Now, there's a term necrosis. Necrosis produces inflammatory reaction, but apoptosis does not. Okay, so that's a difference. Necrosis produces inflammatory reaction in the neighboring tissues, but apoptosis does not. Okay, so apoptosis, from here you can see this is a normal cell. The cell will shrink, chromatins, they condense. The membrane starts blebbing, organelles disintegrate, the nucleus and the organelles collapse, membrane continues to bleb, and then apoptotic bodies form, and then the macrophages phagocytose apoptotic bodies, okay, and they are eliminated out of the cell. Some of the remnants can be recycled. So this is just the steps involved in apoptosis. I can give you an example of apoptosis. For example, a large number of neurons are produced during the development of the central nervous system. But up to 50% of the neurons are removed by apoptosis during the formation of synapses between neurons. Okay, so that's apoptosis. Another way we can think of apoptosis is it's responsible for the removal of tissues, of webs between the fingers and toes during development stage in the fetus. There are many examples. It is necessary for regression and disappearance of duct system during sex differentiation in fetus. For example, formation of a boy or a girl. In a girl, there's that is in a fetus. That is the one destined to become a girl. There's what we call the Mullerian ducts. So those are regressed by apoptosis. But in the male, there's what we call Wolffian ducts. Okay. So apoptosis is a normal process that happens in the body. I'm going to give you just a separate video just to show you the steps and mechanisms involved in apoptosis. We are going to see that there are certain chemicals that can trigger apoptosis. These we call them tumor necrosis factor alpha. We also have the FASL, which is first apoptosis signal ligand. Okay, and then we have the TRAL ligand, which is called tumor necrosis factor related apoptosis inducing ligand. So I'll give you just a separate because it's quite a long discussion. And then we have cells also have what we call, they can have cancer. What is cancer? It's a disease caused by uncontrolled division of abnormal cells in the body. It's defined as a disease caused by uncontrolled division of abnormal cells. Now, apoptosis and cancer. Generally, when something goes abnormal in a cell, that cell is immediately destroyed by apoptosis. This also prevents development of what? Of cancer. However, some of the cells, particularly tumor cells, they invade apoptosis, or they evade apoptosis. The cells escaped from apoptosis becomes cancer cells and continuously proliferate despite their abnormalities. Okay. We have antioxidants. These are substances which protect the cells from damage caused by free radicals. Example, we have beta-carotene, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E. These are antioxidants. Okay. They have bactericidal effects and antiviral effect. Okay. And then we have necrosis. I mentioned that necrosis means uncontrolled and unprogrammed death of cells due to unexpected and accidental damage. So it's also called cell murder. Okay. There are various factors that can cause necrosis. One of them is injury, infection, inflammation, infarction, and cancer can lead to death of cell. Even this one, I'm going to elaborate in more detail the steps involved. But here, we need to know that it's always pathological. There's cell enlargement. The cell begins to enlarge. The cell loses the membrane integrity. There's leakage of content. There's inflammation and nuclear degeneration. Okay. So these are some of the processes which I'm going to elaborate later on. But remember, necrosis results, it's different from apoptosis. Now, there is also this condition, this phenomena called cell adaptation. This refers to the changes taking place in a cell in response to environment. That's a good thing about the human body. The human body is able to adapt to certain environments. Okay, it's able to adapt to environment. So for some of the things that can happen for adaptation, as the cell is adapting, we have things like atrophy, hypertrophy, hyperplasia, dysplasia, metaplasia, neoplasm, or tumor. So these things can occur as the cell is adapting to environment. Let me just define these terminologies. Atrophy, it means a decrease in size of a cell. Atrophy of a greater number of cells result in decreased size or wasting of the concerned tissue, organ, or a part of the body. Okay. For example, if you're not using your muscles, the muscles begin to degenerate. They atrophy. They become flaccid. Okay. And then there is hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is the increase in the size of the cell. Hypertrophy of many cells result in enlargement or overgrowth of an organ. For example, the heart can increase in number, can hypertrophy. For example, people that do a lot of exercise, their heart is enlarged. That is called hypertrophy. Even those that lift weights, their muscles are enlarged. So there are three types of hypertrophy. There is physiological hypertrophy, pathological hypertrophy, and compensatory hypertrophy. I'm going to talk about this later on. And then there is hyperplasia. Hyperplasia is the increase in the number of cells due to increased cell division. In this case, due to increased mitosis. It is also defined as the abnormal or unusual proliferation of the cells due to constant cell division. So hyperplasia results in gross enlargement of the organ, and hyperplasia involves constant cell division of the normal cells only. Okay? Hyperplasia involves constant division of the normal cells only. So this one can be categorized as physiological hyperplasia, compensatory hyperplasia, and pathological hyperplasia. Pathological hyperplasia, I can give you an example, is we've noticed in gigantism, a person becoming a gigant due to hypersecretion of growth hormone. This one induces hyperplasia. And then we have compensatory hyperplasia, whereby the number of cells increase in order to replace the damaged cells of an organ to compensate. And then we have physiological hyperplasia, is a momentary adaptive response to routine physiological changes in the body. For example, during the proliferative phase of each menstrual cycle, the endometrial cells in the uterus increase in number. Okay. And then we have dysplasia. Dysplasia, this is a condition characterized by the abnormal change in size, okay, shape and organization of the cell. Dysplasia is not considered as true adaptation and is suggested as related to hyperplasia. It is common in epithelial cells of the cervix and respiratory tract. We have metaplasia. Metaplasia is the condition that involves replacement of one type of cells with another type of cells. We have physiological metaplasia, example are transformation of cartilage into bone. Pathological hyperplasia, for example, smoking results in transformation where there is irreversible replacement of cells. Okay. Okay, example is noticed in the normal mucus secreting ciliated columnar epithelial cells. They are converted into non-ciliated squamous epithelial cells, which are incapable of secreting mucus. So that is the metaplasia. Meta is a condition that involves replacement of one type of cells with another. And then we have neoplasm. Neoplasm or tumor is the abnormal growth of any organ or tissue in the body. And neoplasm may be benign, which is non-cancerous, or it may be malignant, which is cancerous. Okay, so these are some of the cell adaptations, which as we discuss physiology, we'll be coming back to them. So I've just shown them in form of a graph here or a figure. The normal cell can change in size, change in cell size or number. We have hyperplasia, hypertrophy, atrophy. They can change in cell type. We have metaplasia, dysplasia. Okay. Now the other thing, we know that cell can also undergo aging. So these are structural and functional changes in the cell that occur over the passage of time. For example, the physiological processes in the body, the systems in the body, as we grow old, the way they work, the functionality decreases. Be it the kidney, the cardiovascular system, there is decrease. This is due to aging. Now, what causes aging? This is due to damage of cellular substances like the DNA, the RNA, the proteins, and lipids. Okay. So when more cellular substances are damaged, the cellular function decreases. This causes deterioration of tissues, organs, or part of the body. Finally, the health of the body starts declining, and this leads to death. So the cell aging determines the health and lifespan of the body. Okay, and then we have this concept called stem cell. Stem cell. Stem cells are derived from embryo. They are derived from umbilical cord, blood, and from the embryo, umbilical cord, blood, and adult. Okay, but what is a stem cell? These are the primary cells capable of reforming themselves through mitotic division and differentiating into specialized cell. From here we have a stem cell. It can change into an intestinal cells, liver cells, neurons, blood cells, muscle cells, and this other, what is this structure? It looks like a blood vessel. Okay, so the source of these stem cells, I've said, can either be embryonic stem cells. Okay. So actually, this is where we end. Otherwise, the science of stem cells is a very big field, because we're able to make organs from stem cells. Okay. So these cells, they serve as repair system of the body and are present in all multicellular organisms. Wow. That's why I believe that every organ, when it's at its stage of death, when it's completely gone, it can regenerate with the help of stem cell. I'll explain this later. Thank you very much.